Do y'all know where the word bulldozer comes from? Because no, it's not the machines. The word existed more than 50 years before somebody looked at one of those big yellow machines and decided to call it that. What it originally meant had something to do with Black people voting. So let me explain, because yeah, this is wild. It's 1876 in Louisiana. Slavery has been over for about 11 years. And during Reconstruction, Black men have gained the right to vote, right? They're voting, they're being elected to office. And in Louisiana, there are enough Black voters that they can actually help decide who controls the state. White Democrats want that to stop. So armed white men start going into Black communities and basically they start saying, you're either going to vote Democratic or we're going to make you. And by make you, I mean violence. They threaten people, they beat people. Some people were killed. And eventually people started calling the men doing this bulldozers. That's what a bulldozer was, a person, not a machine. And we actually have newspapers from 1876 explaining this because that word was brand new. People outside Louisiana were basically like, what the hell is a bulldozer? One Washington newspaper explained that these men were giving Black voters something called a bull dose. Basically, a beating severe enough to make somebody vote the way you wanted them to vote. And you're probably wondering the same thing I was. Why would that be called a bull dose? Now, there were actually a couple of explanations going around at the time. One was that the beating was supposed to be like a dose fit for a bull, basically an enormous dose of violence. But another explanation said the bull was referring to the bull whip. So if somebody refused to vote the way these men wanted, they were given a dose of the bull, beaten with the whip until they changed their mind. One newspaper described what could happen if somebody still refused. They said it was several hundred lashes on a bare back. Several hundred over a vote. And somewhere in all of this, bulldoze becomes bulldoze, and the person doing it becomes the bulldozer. Now, dictionary people argue about how exactly that word formed. Was it really a dose fit for a bull? Was it a dose of the bullwhip? Were people just trying to explain slang that had already started spreading? We don't completely know. But what we do know is what that word bulldozing meant when it first started showing up. Violence and intimidation being used against Black voters. And one of the earliest known appearances of this word in print tells you exactly what kind of world it came out of. June 1876. New Orleans. The article is literally titled More Murder, reporting on violence happening against Black people in Louisiana. And it talks about a Black man named W.Y. Payne, who was reportedly taken from his bed at night and found dead. That's where we're finding this brand new word, in a report about racial violence. And unfortunately, all of this worked. There were places in New Orleans where people had originally voted Republican. And after the violence, the Republican vote practically disappeared. Congress actually investigated what became known as the bulldoze parishes. So when somebody said a parish had been bulldozed in 1876, people knew what they meant. Black voters had been terrorized. But then the word starts changing, like anything else, right? Eventually, bulldoze starts to be used more generally. If you bullied somebody, intimidated them, forced your way through, you bulldozed them, right? And then we get the machine. And that happened in the 1930s when these big tractors with the blades on the front started being called bulldozers, because this word already carried the idea of this overwhelming force. So the machine didn't give us the word. The word gave us the name for the machine. And by the time that big yellow machine gets called a bulldozer, the word already has more than 50 years of history behind it.